Hello and welcome to another fascinating video about Django and Django REST framework on my channel. So, the topic of today is how we could enable password validation in Django REST framework. Well, Django has a lot of built-in functionality, that was already implemented for us. And what is the most important and one of the strongest advantages of Django is that it has a lot of security functionality implemented for us. So, as a good rule of thumb, as a developer, you should never reinvent a wheel, especially in topics like security, authentication, authorization, when it comes to cases when your framework already has this functionality implemented. So, Django has a lot of security functionality, and one of the most important, as I think, features that is implemented for us is password management and password validation. So here you could see that I have opened this password management documentation in Django, and if you just scroll down a little bit, you could find that we have this password validation section. Let's just go there. You could see that password validation allows us to mitigate the problem of poor passwords. That's always, well, not always, but in 99% are chosen by users of your application. And one of the, I think, most important features of password validation in Django is that it is pluggable. So, if you will scroll down a little bit, you could see that we have this auth password validators property in settings.py that allows us to plug password validators that we need, that were implemented for us. So we have 4 validators that are implemented by Django. It's a user attribute similarity validator, a minimum length validator, common password validator, and numeric password validator. But you also could implement your own validators, so you could plug them in this settings.py file. Well, if you use Django views, these things, and especially if you use built-in Django forms, such as user creation form for sign up, this functionality is already configured for us, and we don't need to do anything. So let me just go to this simple sign up page that I have implemented here, and let's just create a new user. So let's say we have this makov.xuz. So we have a password. Let's just type a secret and a secret here. So it's very simple password, and it violates several validators. It is common and it's less than 8 symbols, which is a default value for minimum length validator. So let me create an account, and you could see that I have error messages. And let me just create another one, and I will have 2 passwords. One was secret one, and the second would be secret, so they do not match. And when we submit this form, we will see that the password fields did not match. This is the functionality that's implemented with the user creation form that I inherit here for my sign up form. But if we go to an API client, and if we will call the sign up endpoint that was implemented previously in one of the videos on this channel, you could see that if I will submit the same data, let's say here secret, you see that we are allowed to create a user. So when we use the Django REST framework, validators are not enabled by default, and the topic of this video is how we could actually enable validators, how we could use these Django validators with Django REST framework endpoints. So let's see how we could do it. Okay, now let's start coding. But first thing first, let me go to the settings.py file of our project, and you could see that we have these auth password validators that I have mentioned in the previous section of this video. And by default, we have all 4 validators enabled for us by Django: user attribute similarity, minimum length validator, common passwords validator, and numeric password validator. Well, while it is obviously that we could just import all these 4 validators and call them one by one, it is not what we actually should do in Django, because Django has a special function that allows us to call all validators that are specified in this property. Well, why we shouldn't use it? Well, the answer here is that if we will remove validators or we will add another validators, they would be called automatically by Django, so we don't need to refactor our code. Well, let's see how we could call these password validators in Django REST framework. Well, while it is called on the form level in Django, in Django REST framework, we should call it in the serializers level. So let's go to the serializers.py of our users app. And here, as you remember in one of the previous videos, we implemented this custom signup serializer. And now let's implement this password validation functionality. So let me just maximize my code editor. And the first thing, we need to import several things from Django. So from Django contrib auth password validation, we should import validate password. And this is the function that I have mentioned. So this is the function that will validate all validator requirements that are specified in the settings.py, and it should and here we should pass two arguments: a password, which is obvious, and the second would be user. Why actually we need to have a user? Well, we need to have a user attribute similarity validator, and it requires us to have a user object. But there is a small trick, and it's always missed by developer. When the validator is not passed, especially this user attribute similarity validator, we should remove user. So we should not have this this kind of like trick when user will have an error message, but still user would be stored in the database with a weak password. And this is what we should not do. And this is what's implemented in Django, but it should be also implemented in Django REST framework by us manually. Well, let's import this validate password. And also from Django core exception, we will import a validation error. And this is a validation error from Django. And we need this because this validate password will throw this validation error once the password is not match all requirements. And we need to have this validation error, which is different from serializer validation error, which we also should use in this implementation. Well, here you see that we have this custom create methods, and in this methods we will implement our password validation functionality. Well, the first thing first, let me introduce a try except block, and here we call the validate password function. We have a password, so we have it from validated data, and we have a user, which comes from user. That is this user that we have created. Okay, now what we could do, we could accept validation error as error, and we will raise serializers validation error, and here we pass an object. So we will pass an object with error messages that will be returned to our API client. So we have here a password, which is a kind of key, the key of this validation error, and here we specify the list of messages that are returned by this validate password function. And this is kind of all functionalities that we need. So now we could test our implementation and see how it does work. Okay, as a software developer, you should always write automated tests once you implemented custom functionality to validate it. Well, let's go to the test views py file, and let's add another test case to check that signup API view actually use password validation functionality. So we have here test signup API view password validation, and we have here self arguments. Well, let me reuse this code that I have in the previous test case, and here let me just pass a very simple and num password. Just let's have a pass, and we expect that the API view will return a 400 error code because the password is not matched to password validation requirements. So let me go to my terminal and let me run poetry, run python manage.py test command. And as you see that the password is passed. Now let's test the same functionality using our API client. So say poetry run python manage.py run server. And now let me go to my Insomnia client. Let me call this API endpoint for sign up, and let me pass an email. Let's say we have here a fake email, email.com, and the password would be secret. And you see that the password validation will return this password errors. But, and this is what I have mentioned in the previous section, if we just add another password that will also fail a password validation, it will actually fail two password validators. It will have first minimum length, just 5 symbols, and it's all numeric. That is, will violate a numeric password validator. And we will send this request. You will see that a user with this email already exists, and this is what I have mentioned previously. So let me go to VS Code again, and here when we accept this validation error, what we need to do, we need to delete the user. And let's save this code. And if we go back to Insomnia, and let's have fake email 1, and if we will execute this command, we'll have this password validation error. However, when we have here a secret, another password that will obviously invalidated, we will send this request. You see that we have the same password error message, because this user actually is not stored in the database anymore. It was removed. And this also the small point that you should always keep in mind. Well, this is all for this video. If you find this video interesting and useful for you, I highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel and share this video with your colleagues and friends. And I will see you soon with a new content about Django REST framework or other technologies on my channel. So have a nice day.